Good evening. Thank you for attending my presentation. I'm going to present an oral presentation on A Rose for Emily by William Faulkner. I created a PowerPoint slide as my visual aid to give you a visual picture of the main character in the story. A Rose for Emily by William Faulkner talks about a woman who struggles with her past, present, sanity, and continuing changing life around her. Faulkner begins the story by portraying Emily's family history of insanity and her life transitions with mental downfall. Emily starts to show signs of mental illness early on in the story when her father suddenly passes away. Her father was a very overbearing and strict man. When Emily became of age, her father did not let any man court her. She was a very beautiful and young woman that was definitely ready for marriage. When Emily's father passed away, it was very devastating to Emily, and she found herself unable to cope with his passing, which then she went into denial. Emily found herself clinging to him because she was under his command for so long. She felt lost without him and really didn't know what to do at that point. And because of her mental state at that point, she went and she had kept his body in her home for the next 3 days without showing any sadness or remorse or grief. Eventually, the townspeople convinced her to give his body up for burial. They did not label her as being crazy. They knew how strict her father was with her, and they truly believed that he had robbed her of a lonely, sad, and unmarried life. As time went on, as Emily aged, so did her street and her home. Her home was considered one of the most beautiful homes on the street, which now represented very old age, like it represented her. And the town described her home as being an eyesore. Faulkner describes Emily as a fallen monument. As time passed, she was like a monument to the past that stayed secluded in her old age. Shortly after her father's death, she met a gentleman named Homer Barron, who had came to the town with a company that came to pave the roads. He was described as a traveling man that was very social and labeled as a Yankee, which is someone that Emily's father would have greatly disapproved of. Through Emily's demented and insane mind, she knew that she was going to have to find ways to keep Homer in her life because they both knew that he was going to eventually move on. She felt that the only way to keep him close to her was to kill him. The last week that Homer was in town, he was seen going in and out of her home. On the last day, he was seen going in her home. No one ever saw him coming out. From that point on, for the next 6 months, Emily nor Homer Barron was ever seen again. Wasn't seen. As time went on, Emily eventually came out of seclusion, and to everyone's surprise, had a great change. She had long gray hair, had aged, and had gained much weight. She eventually decided to give China painting lessons and had invited some of the town women to come do China painting with her. That lasted for several months, but eventually all her students left and she was once again left alone. Eventually, Emily passes away she passes away alone with the exception of her servant Toby. She passed away in her home in a bed that was placed downstairs for her. No one even knew that she was ill because she rarely came out of her home and never communicated with the family. Her servant would venture out of the home but never communicated with any of the townspeople. The only people that she communicated with was her cousins from Alabama, and when they heard of her death, they immediately came to hold the funeral for her. After the funeral, after the funeral, her servant Toby had let the townspeople into her home, which they discovered that all of her upstairs bedroom was blocked off. A few of the townsmen had broken into the room upstairs and found that it was decorated to be a bridal chamber. It was decorated in roses. The shades and curtains were decorated in roses and lace, and in the middle room was a bed that lay the rotten corpse of Homer Barron, and beside it was a pillow that had an indentation of a head and a long gray strand of hair. The strand of hair represented the lost love that describes things that people do in the pursuit of happiness. The strand of hair also describes the physical transformation of Emily that she underwent as she aged, and the tragic life that was left to decay, much like the body of Homer Barron. Emily's bridal chamber is an attempt to stop time completely and to prevent change. By doing this, it comes at the expense of human life. In conclusion, the story of A Rose for Emily portrays the complicated life of Emily Pearson and her love life and the way she could not accept change. Emily is a prime example of past, present, Old South, and the ongoing changes and hardships that she went through in her lifetime. That concludes my oral presentation. Thank you for attending. Is there any questions? Thank you.